A warm welcome to next topic, and the next tense is perfect tense. Present perfect, past perfect and future perfect tense. How do we change active voice into passive voice of present perfect tense, past perfect tense and future perfect tense? As far as the structure of perfect tense is concerned, you are very well aware of has, have plus V3 is used to represent an action in present perfect tense. So, we shall use been in case of passive voice of present perfect tense. Has, have, V3, we shall use has, have, been plus past participle to express the action in passive form. For example, India has won the series. Here, India is the subject, doer of the action, has won is the verb and the series is the object. We have to change this object into the subject of passive sentence. For example, the series, and being singular we shall use has been past participle won. The series has been won by India. Next is, have you bought a new car? This is an active voice. This sentence is in active voice and interrogative present perfect tense. We shall keep it interrogative in passive form too. For example, have you bought a new car? Has a new car is the object. We shall keep it in interrogative form, so we shall use has before the subject a new car. Has a new car been bought by you? And a sign of interrogation will remain there. Next is past perfect tense. We use had in place of has and have in case of past perfect tense, had plus V3. What you have to do, you have to add been. Other than other rules, you have to add been after had and before past participle in case of passive voice. Let us take a few examples. He had constructed a new house. Here, he is the subject, a new house is the object, and had constructed is the past perfect tense verb. Now, a new house had been constructed by him. This is the simple sentence, active into passive. Next is interrogative sentence, had I committed the crime? Had I committed the crime? Again, had the crime is the object of active voice sentence, had the crime been committed by me. In this way, we can change active voice of past perfect tense into passive voice. And the next tense is future perfect tense. As you know, we use shall, will, have plus past participle in active voice form of future perfect tense, as we have already learnt in the videos of tenses. Now, what we have to do to change it into passive form, we have to add been after shall, will, have and before past participle. For example, the police will not have caught the thief. The police will not have caught the thief. In this way, the thief is the object. Change it into subject of the passive sentence. The thief will not have been caught by the police. Next is, shall we have finished our job? Shall we have finished our job? Our job is the object, and because it is an interrogative sentence, so will our job have been finished by us? Keep it interrogative. In all the perfect tenses, while changing them from active voice to passive voice, we have to change object into subject subject into agent, and in addition to these basic changes, we have to add just been after has, have, had and shall, will, have respectively. In this way, we can change active voice into passive voice. डिफरेंट टेंसेस के एक्टिव वॉइस सेंटेंसेस को हमने पैसिव वॉइस में चेंज करना सीखा। अब आइए हम देखते हैं कि फ्यूचर कंटीन्यूअस टेंस एंड ऑल द परफेक्ट कंटीन्यूअस टेंसेस can't be changed into passive form, can't be changed into passive voice, because they have already something after the helping verb. For example, there is be after shall and will in case of future continuous tense, and we have used been in case of all the perfect continuous tenses in the structure of all the three perfect continuous tenses. For example, subject has, have or had or shall, will, have been V1 ing plus object since for with a time phrase. So this been is already there and now we have nothing to add to make it into a passive voice, to transform it into passive voice. That is why out of 12 tenses, we can change only 8 tenses from active voice to passive voice, except future continuous, present perfect continuous, past perfect continuous and future perfect continuous. One more thing is there. Let us have a glance at these sentences. I laugh. Change it into passive voice. Can we change? No, we can't change it. He died young. Can we change it into passive voice? No. She is sleeping. Can we change? No. They are dancing. Can we change these sentences? Can we transform these sentences into passive form? Not at all. Why? Because to transform a sentence of active voice into passive voice, we need an object so that we can make the subject of new sentence in passive form. They have no object and they need no object. For example, verb laugh, die, sleep, dance. These verbs need no object to complete the meaning of these sentences. These sentences are quite meaningful without objects. So, they are known as intransitive verbs. We have already discussed the difference between transitive verbs and intransitive use of verbs. These verbs are used intransitively in these sentences. Intransitive use of verbs need no object. That is why we can't change them, we can't transform them into passive voice. All the sentences having no object or all the sentences in which verbs are used intransitively need no object and consequently we can't transform them into passive voice. Students, now we are going to transform active voice sentences having double objects. Some active voice sentences have two objects. One is the direct object and the other one is indirect object. How shall we change such active sentences into passive voice? For example, he teaches us English grammar. यहाँ पर he is the subject, teaches is the verb and simple present tense. Us is the indirect object and English grammar is the direct object. I have written O1 object 1 to the direct object and O2 to the indirect object. First of all, we have to understand the difference between a direct object and indirect object. Indirect object, when we answer whom, we get an indirect object. There is an action of teaching, and he is the doer of the action, and us is the receiver of the action of teaching. And what is received, that is English grammar. That is why these sentences have double objects, indirect object us and direct object English grammar. If we ask what, then we get this direct object, and when we ask whom or who is the receiver of the action, we get indirect object. We can change an active voice of this sentence into a passive voice using both the objects, either direct object or indirect object. But there is a little bit difference. You have to understand the transformation of such sentences into passive form. For example, he teaches us English grammar. You can make the indirect or direct object the subject of the passive sentence. For example, here I am taking direct object as the subject of passive sentence. For example, English grammar, simple present tense is past participle taught. English grammar is taught to us. To whom it is taught? It is taught to us. We shall always use to us. Before this, indirect object, by him. This is the by phrase, or we can say the agent. Now we can change it using the other indirect object, us. Now, before changing it into passive voice, we have to change this indirect object into the subjective form. We can't use this objective form as it is, because this objective form of a pronoun can't become the subject of a sentence. That is why we shall change it into we. We are taught English grammar by him. We are taught English grammar by him. यहां पर आपने देखा, यहां टू के बाद इनडायरेक्ट ऑब्जेक्ट है. बच्चे अक्सर इस टू को लगाना भूल जाते हैं और डायरेक्ट ऑब्जेक्ट से शुरू किया हुआ पैसिव वॉइस गलत हो जाता है. आपको यहां ध्यान रखना है, इफ यू आर बिगनिंग द पैसिव सेंटेंस विद डायरेक्ट ऑब्जेक्ट, देन ऑलवेज यूज टू बिफोर द इनडायरेक्ट ऑब्जेक्ट of active voice. If you are beginning the passive form of the sentence with an indirect object, always take its subjective form. We are taught English grammar by him. Here we need no to. Let us take one more example. My uncle gave me a present. A present means a gift. My uncle is the subject here. Action is giving something is the action. To whom the something was given? To me, means this is indirect object. To whom? Indirect object. And what was given, what was received or given, that is a present, which is a direct object. Here, if we start the passive form of this sentence with this direct object, a present, then we shall use to before indirect object. If we shall begin with the subjective case of me, means I, then we need no to. Now let us begin the passive sentence with direct object, a present. A present gave, it's V2, simple past tense. We shall use was, were plus past participle in case of passive voice. A present was given. Given to whom? A present was given to me. Here we shall use to. Given to me by my uncle. Or I was given a present by my uncle. We can transform double object active voice sentences into passive voice in both the ways. There are two ways to transform these sentences into passive voice. We have discussed modal verbs in detail, auxiliary verbs in detail. Now, how shall we change modal verbs from active voice to passive voice? For example, some active voice sentences may have modal verbs followed by V1 or have plus past participle. How shall we change such sentences into passive form? For example, one should do one's duty. In this sentence, this one is the subject or the doer of the action. One should do one's duty. Modal verb V1 and one's duty or duty is the object. Now, we can remove this one and this one because they are vague subject. We need no one in passive form. So, because the main thing is duty. Here, the emphasis is on duty, not one. So, we can remove one from this sentence while changing it into passive form. Duty should be done because modals followed by V1 or have plus past participle, we shall change their passive form by adding be to modal plus be plus past participle when V1 is there, and modal plus have been plus past participle when have plus past participle is there in case of active sentences. हमें अपनी तरफ से केवल मॉडल के बाद बी लगाना है, इस V1 को पास्ट पार्टिसिपल में चेंज कर देना है. अगर पहले से मॉडल प्लस हैव है तो हमें अपनी तरफ से बीन लगा देना है बिफोर पास्ट पार्टिसिपल. अगर सब्जेक्ट वेग है, अनइम्पोर्टेंट है, वी नीड नो सब्जेक्ट, वी नीड नो एजेंट इन केस ऑफ पैसिव वॉइस. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, here duty should be done. Here emphasis is on duty and it should be done modal plus be plus past participle. Next example, they must do it at once. Here they is the subject, must do it, modal verb V1, it is the object. They must do it. At once means immediately. Here they must do it at once. We should start the passive form with it. It modal verb plus be plus past participle is must be done at once. It must be done at once. We need not to add by them here, or if we add, there is no error. He should have taken the medicine. For example, modal verb plus have plus V3 is there. We have to add been while transforming them into passive form. Here, the medicine is the object of this active voice sentence. The medicine should have been taken by him. The medicine should have been taken by him. Next is, she must have obeyed the traffic rules. मान लीजिए किसी का चालान हो जाता है, किसी की गाड़ी का, किसी के व्हीकल का, या फिर किसी का एक्सीडेंट हो जाता है, तो आफ्टर द इंसिडेंट सम पीपल सजेस्ट दैट शी मस्ट हैव ओबेड द ट्रैफिक रूल्स. नाउ चेंज इट इनटू पैसिव वॉइस. द ट्रैफिक रूल्स इज द ऑब्जेक्ट हियर. मस्ट हैव बीन. द ट्रैफिक रूल्स मस्ट हैव बीन ओबेड बाय हर. And one can't move the mountain. Can you? Can I? None. One can't move the mountain. Here, this is known as the vague subject. It has no importance because what is important? The moving of mountain is impossible. While changing it into, transforming it into a passive form, we shall write the mountain can't be moved. It can't be moved. In this way, we can change active voice having modal verbs into passive voice. Now, we are going to discuss imperative sentences and how to change imperative sentences from active voice to passive voice. As you know, imperative sentences are the sentences which express advice, order or command or request are known as imperative sentences. For example, bring me a glass of water, please. This is an imperative sentence beginning with a verb. Bring me. Bring is a verb. Do it. Do it at once. Leave the office. All the imperative sentences begin with a verb. But what is the subject of the imperative sentences? Have you thought over it? For example, be quiet, keep quiet, bring the file. Here, who is the subject? Who is the doer of the action? You. Actually, bring me a glass of water, please. You bring me a glass of water, please. Stand up means you stand up. But in imperative sentences, this subject is implied. This is hidden. It is never stated. So, these sentences begin with a verb instead of an implied subject you. Now, let us learn how to change these imperative sentences from active voice to passive voice. First of all, we have to find out the meaning or the expression in the sentence. Is there advice, order or command or request? If there is advice, then we shall change into by this pattern or this structure, you are advised to do this thing. You are advised to do something. If there is an order or command, then we can say because you is the implied subject, then you are ordered to do something. And if there is a request, then I can say you are requested to do this and this or something. You are ordered to, you are advised to, you are requested to do V1 or V1 something. In this way, we can change the structure of imperative sentences from active voice to passive voice. Now, one more pattern is also there. We can make the imperative sentences beginning with let. We can make them passive beginning with let. With the help of this structure, we can change imperative sentences from active voice to passive voice. For example, let plus object plus be plus past participle, V3. For example, one more structure is also there. Dash should be past participle. It should be past participle. It should be V3. With the help of these structures also, we can change imperative sentences from active voice to passive voice. Let us have a few examples. For example, shut the door. Shut the door. यहाँ हमें यह पता नहीं चलता है कि हम किसी को ऑर्डर दे रहे हैं, रिक्वेस्ट है या क्या है. जब हमें कुछ इस प्रकार से कोई एक्सप्रेशन, रिक्वेस्ट, ऑर्डर या एडवाइस का पता ना हो, तो हम उसे लेट से शुरू कर सकते हैं और पैसिव में चेंज कर सकते हैं. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, लेट प्लस ऑब्जेक्ट. लेट ऑब्जेक्ट यहां पर द डोर है. लेट द डोर, अपनी तरफ से हम बी लगाएंगे. Let the door be and V3 of this verb shut. Shut, 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 shut. Let the door be shut. But if there is a word please, shut the door please, it means there is a request. We can change this sentence like this: you are requested to shut the door. Next is don't insult the poor. यहां पर don't insult the poor, एक व्यक्ति किसी दूसरे से कह रहा है, he is saying to someone else don't insult the poor. It means some was insulting the poor. and he says don't insult the poor. For example, यहां पर don't insult ये नेगेटिव है, ये वर्ब है, ये ऑब्जेक्ट है. let ऑब्जेक्ट, let the poor, फिर हम लिखेंगे not be insulted. let the poor not be insulted, or with the help of this should pattern, should structure, we can say the poor should not be insulted. पुअर होने का मतलब ये नहीं है कि कोई भी उसकी इंसल्ट करेगा. द पुअर शुड नॉट बी इंसल्टेड और लेट द पुअर नॉट बी इंसल्टेड. बोथ द स्ट्रक्चर्स, बोथ द पैटर्न्स आर द पैसिव फॉर्म ऑफ दिस सेंटेंस, डोंट इंसल्ट द पुअर. Let us take one more example. Respect your elders. Here, respect your elders. It means someone was not respecting his elders. So I can suggest him, I can advise him, or anyone can advise him to respect his elders. We can say you are advised to respect your elders. You are advised to respect your elders. Or elders, in case of should structure, we can change its passive like this: elders should be respected, because they deserve to be respected. They should be respected. Next is get out at once. It means order is there. There is an order. This phrase at once tells us that there is an order in this expression, in this imperative sentence. We can say you are ordered to get out at once. तुरंत चले जाओ यहां से. Next is do it. Just एक छोटा सा sentence frequently asked in many examinations. Do it. We can start it with let. Let, यहां पर it is the object. Let it be अपनी तरफ से done. Let it be done. Let it be done. In this way, we can change imperative sentences from active voice to passive voice. Dear students, there are a few more structures. अक्सर हमें एक्टिव वॉइस में, एग्जामिनेशंस में इस प्रकार के सेंटेंसेस देखने को मिलते हैं जिन्हें हम देयर और इट स्ट्रक्चर्स कह सकते हैं. दे बिगिन विद आइदर देयर और इट. Their structure or its structure, and we are asked to change these sentences into passive voice. It is very easy, but the students usually get confused while changing them from active voice to passive voice. आइए सबसे पहले हम ये समझें कि ये their और its structures होते क्या हैं, इस स्ट्रक्चर में क्या क्या होता है और कैसे हम इसको एक्टिव वॉइस से पैसिव वॉइस में चेंज करेंगे. देखिए, देयर प्लस बी फॉर्म होती है हमेशा. इज, एम, आर, वॉज, वर आपको मिलेंगे. देयर बी, फिर नाउन मिलेगा, फिर उसके बाद टू इन्फिनेटिव से ये स्ट्रक्चर खत्म होता है. यहां तक होता है ये. देयर बी नाउन और इट बी नाउन, यहां तक दोनों स्ट्रक्चर सेम हैं. नाउन 2v1 और यहां पर 2v1 के बाद इट स्ट्रक्चर में आपको ऑब्जेक्ट मिल जाएगा. देखिए एक एग्जांपल से हम देखते हैं. देयर इज टाइम टू स्टडी. देयर इज वर्ब है बी, टाइम नाउन है और फिर टू स्टडी टू इन्फिनेटिव है. देयर इज नथिंग टू से. नथिंग को यहां पर हमने नाउन के रूप में यूज किया है. देयर बी नाउन टू इन्फिनेटिव. हाउ शैल वी चेंज दीज स्ट्रक्चर्स इनटू पैसिव वॉइस? If the structure begins with there, if the sentence begins with there, then we shall make no change in this pattern. There plus be plus noun, it will remain the same. And we shall only change this to V1, this to infinitive, into to be V3, to be past participle, to be past participle. देखिए, देयर इज टाइम टू स्टडी. हम इतने सेंटेंस में इस स्ट्रक्चर में कोई चेंज नहीं करेंगे. देयर इज टाइम टू प्लस बी प्लस पास्ट पार्टिसिपल ऑफ दिस वर्ब. देयर इज टाइम टू बी स्टडीड. दैट इज इट. देयर इज नथिंग टू से, हम इस स्ट्रक्चर में कोई चेंज नहीं करेंगे। देयर इज नथिंग टू बी सैड, केवल ये जो टू इन्फिनेटिव है इसमें हम टू के बाद बी लगाएंगे और पास्ट पार्टिसिपल ऑफ द वर्ब यूज करेंगे। देयर इज नथिंग टू बी सैड। इसी प्रकार से इट्स स्ट्रक्चर, यहां पर थोड़ा सा डिफरेंस है जिसे आपको समझने की जरूरत है। फॉर एग्जाम्पल, इट बी प्लस नाउन प्लस 2v1 के बाद ऑब्जेक्ट है, इसलिए हमें ऑब्जेक्ट को पहले लाना पड़ेगा। कैसे लाएंगे? फॉर प्लस ऑब्जेक्ट करके लेके आएंगे। देखिए, इट इज टाइम टू लर्न इंग्लिश, इट इज टाइम टू लर्न इंग्लिश, टू इन्फिनेटिव, इंग्लिश ऑब्जेक्ट। इस ऑब्जेक्ट को हम पहले ले आएंगे, इस स्ट्रक्चर में हम कोई चेंज नहीं करेंगे। इट इज टाइम फॉर इंग्लिश, और फिर वही जो देयर स्ट्रक्चर में हमने किया था, टू बी पास्ट पार्टिसिपल। देयर इज टाइम फॉर इंग्लिश टू बी लर्नड, देयर इज टाइम फॉर इंग्लिश, और इट इज टाइम फॉर इंग्लिश टू बी लर्नड। नेक्स्ट इज, इट इज टाइम टू स्टार्ट वोटिंग। जिस प्रकार से वोटिंग होती है, वोटिंग का एक बिगिनिंग टाइम होता है, तो वोटिंग का जो ऑफिसर होता है, प्रेजाइडिंग ऑफिसर, वो कहता है इट इज टाइम टू स्टार्ट वोटिंग। 2v1 टू इन्फिनेटिव प्लस ऑब्जेक्ट। इट इज टाइम, नो चेंज, इट इज टाइम फॉर वोटिंग टू बी स्टार्टेड, इट इज टाइम फॉर वोटिंग टू बी स्टार्टेड। इस प्रकार से हम देयर और इट स्ट्रक्चर वाले सेंटेंसेस को एक्टिव वॉइस से पैसिव वॉइस में चेंज कर देंगे। आइए हम एक स्ट्रक्चर और देखते हैं जो सब्जेक्ट से स्टार्ट होता है। फॉर एग्जाम्पल, सब्जेक्ट, वर्ब, नाउन और नाउन फ्रेज एंड देन 2v1 ऑब्जेक्ट। जो इट स्ट्रक्चर में था ठीक वैसा ही यहां पर केवल ये सब्जेक्ट आ जाता है इट और देयर के स्थान पर। सेम प्रक्रिया रहेगी, उसी प्रकार से चेंज करेंगे। सब्जेक्ट प्लस वी, इसमें कोई चेंज नहीं करेंगे, और 2bv3 लगा देंगे अपनी तरफ से पास्ट पार्टिसिपल 2b के बाद। एक एग्जाम्पल से इसको समझने का प्रयास करते हैं। आई लाइक स्टूडेंट्स टू रेस्पेक्ट मी। मैं चाहता हूं कि विद्यार्थी मेरा रेस्पेक्ट करें, मेरा आदर करें। आई लाइक स्टूडेंट्स टू रेस्पेक्ट मी। यहां पर इस नाउन को हम हटा देंगे, रिमूव कर देंगे। आई लाइक सेम रहेगा, आई लाइक टू बी रेस्पेक्टेड। ये मी इस आई का ही ऑब्जेक्टिव केस है। आई लाइक टू बी रेस्पेक्टेड। वी हैव टू बिलीव इट, हमें इस पर विश्वास करना होगा। वी हैव टू बिलीव इट। वी हैव टू बी बिलीव्ड, वी हैव टू बी बिलीव्ड। इस प्रकार से टू बी पास्ट पार्टिसिपल स्ट्रक्चर से इन तीन प्रकार के सेंटेंसेस को देयर स्ट्रक्चर, इट स्ट्रक्चर एंड सब्जेक्ट वर्ब नाउन स्ट्रक्चर followed by to infinitive and object. We shall change them into passive voice easily.